you guys are gonna help sing it, right?
Have you ever had a moment where you couldn't express your thoughts clearly, like writing an essay or speaking to someone else? This is what someone would feel when English is their second language. In this episode, we will be exploring what some Asian Americans and immigrants experience on a daily basis with regards to language barriers. My name is Kevin Zhao.
I'm Andy Lau.
I'm Kevin Nguyen. So Andy, what are language barriers?
Well, it depends on who you're talking about. You could be talking about immigrants who came to America not knowing English, or first-gen children of immigrants not knowing their native tongue. Of course, within their household, both may have difficulties communicating if they don't share the same language.
Hey Kevin, you said you did interviews with Asian American folks willing to comment on their experience, right?
Yep.
Yeah, play.
All right.
Hi, I'm William.
Hi, William. What language do you speak at home?
I speak Chinese, Mandarin.
Are you fluent?
I am moderately fluent.
Can we ask you a few interview questions about language and language barriers?
Yeah, sure.
Thank you. First question. Can you share a personal experience where you encountered the language barrier and how you navigated through it?
Well, I'm pretty fluent with English, but the problem is that my parents are immigrants from China, and their English isn't as good as mine.
Mm-hmm.
And during college applications, and while I was registering for financial aid through FAFSA, I found it really difficult to actually register for financial aid because there were a lot of tax documents that I had to fill out, and since my parents didn't understand the financial aid process because it was really complicated, I had to learn a lot about government forms and taxes and how all these financial aid forms all these government forms work. And I found that I think it's just really difficult for first generation people to get financial aid, and I feel like there's the financial aid system, the language barrier prevents people from actually getting financial aid to pursue college in America.
Right. You're a first generation student, right?
Yeah.
What are the most common challenges people face when dealing with language barriers in their daily lives?
I feel like miscommunications where both parties that are speaking don't realize that there was a miscommunication, so both parties leave the conversation with different thoughts of what the other person actually said, and when that happens, that can cause a lot of conflicts that were just accidental.
Right. Okay, last question then. Could you share success stories or examples of individuals or groups who have effectively addressed language barriers to create positive change in their communities or workplaces?
Or in San Francisco, there are a lot of they're hubs of they're cultural hubs, right?
Yeah.
There's Chinatown where everyone speaks Mandarin and Cantonese there, and there's Japantown. There's what's that place called? Yeah, there's a bunch of neighborhoods.
Yeah, I know what you're talking
which is
about.
where it's just basically a community of people who share the same language barrier, and when groups of people like these come together, then the language barrier kind of falls away. And San Francisco is a very diverse place and does that well.
Yeah, well, that's all the questions we have today. Thank you. Thank you for letting us interview you.
Of course.
So how would you describe your family?
I guess, how do I say it? It's I don't know the English translation, but I would say 麻烦. It's very problematic, very very tedious, very annoying.
Yeah, too much. For me, in my household, me and my parents don't really have long conversations. At dinner, we're just silent. And that might be a result of having difficulty communicating in the opposite language, but I think it's also a cultural difference between America and Asia.
Yeah, we're just both eating, no words exchange. It's either a conversation is on current events or whatever's on KTSF, We just eat and watch the news.
What's KTSF?
It's I guess, the local Chinese newscast or broadcast.
Oh.
I used to watch that with my parents.
I can kind of understand Vietnamese, mostly how my own family speaks, because ever since they came to the UF, they've had to simplify their speaking so I can kind of understand them. I can't read it or speak it though. And as a result, I'm kind of the designated translator in public, translating from Vietnamese to English, vice versa.
I think language barriers as a whole is a product of assimilation into a culture, and I feel like both immigrants and children of immigrants want to feel more American so as not to be alienated.
Isn't that the point of America though? It's like a whole melting pot of cultures where they can be shared and experienced by everyone.
It's kind of weird because there's no real solution to language barriers. It's not like we can force every child to learn their native language and make every immigrant totally proficient in English. But I feel like as time goes on, people are more aware of losing their culture, so they're more enthusiastic about learning about it.
After exploring language barriers faced by Asian American immigrants and their kids, it highlights the struggles that they face living in Americanized society, especially for those who have English as their second language. It's a million times harder for them to fit in compared to the next generation, which can probably speak English as their first language. I can relate a lot to these experiences we talked about.
Yeah, so can I.
Well, that's the whole point of this podcast. I think that's all we have left to discuss, and thank you for being here.
Well, thank you for having us.
Thank you.
This has been the AAS 128 podcast. Thank you for listening, and tune in next time.
Is it too late to call you home? I'm sorry, Tokyo.